everybody, to another episode of Making Monsters. I'm Taylor Dahl, and we are continuing on getting to know some of these Chicago Bears draft picks a little bit better. And now we are going to chat Rutgers running back, which was drafted in the 7th round, which I think is an absolute steal. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But Damiere Shaw, he is the running back coach for Rutgers. Thank you for hopping on with us, Coach Shaw.
Oh, absolutely, Taylor. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I'm super excited to get to know a little bit more about Kyle Monangai. He is somebody that since the Bears made this pick, everybody that I'm seeing when it comes into the draft world, we're also shocked he even made it that far. And I know for the Bears, it feels like a win. He's still getting his name called for being drafted. I'm sure it's still exciting, although a lot of people think it should have been a little bit higher. But let's talk about kind of the beginning, because when you look at your profile, when you read about Kyle, you were a big part and kind of everything that he was able to do at Rutgers, and they use that word mentor between you and him quite often when you read about it. So let's just chat about that a little bit. Him coming to Rutgers, he got there the same year that you got there at Rutgers initially. So chat about that, him choosing to play football at Rutgers initially, and then kind of this path that has now surfaced into him getting drafted.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about Kyle's journey to Rutgers and during his tenure at Rutgers is really unique. Coach Damiere had just taken a job in 2020, and Kyle was just floating around there, right? And he had a bunch of FCS stuff, and he had flown under the radar because there was another guy at his high school who was more highly recruited. But he had a head coach who stood on the table for him. His high school head coach stood on the table for him, and Coach Damiere took a shot because of the relationship that he had with the high school head coach. And I was in an off-the-field role at that time, and I remember walking by Kyle, and he and I joke about this, but I remember walking by Kyle, and I'm like, is this guy, he can't be a scholarship running back, right? and just getting to know him over the years, his first 3 years, I was not his coach. 2022, I was a running back coach, and you could see him kind of, or the receivers coach, and you can see him kind of start to transform into a player. And then 23 and 24 is when he really broke out. But he's always been a smart guy. He's always been a student of the game. He's always been an incredibly hard worker and a super competitor, which has been cool to watch him evolve as a football player, but knowing those things have been consistent since the time I've gotten to know him. But, it was a very unique situation how he ended up at Rutgers and then his development throughout his 5 years here.
Yeah, when you go back and you can look at the box scores, but the one thing for me, especially when it comes to running backs, is there is even more to the story than what you can read in numbers when it comes to that position. And I do want to get into a little of that other stuff, but starting over, you talked about when you took over that running back coaching position because you were wide receivers first, and it just so happened Monangai then back-to-back years with 1,200 plus yards on the season, and that year you took over, and the following, obviously, this last year. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I don't know how familiar people are with Rutgers and their offense and how everything ran. So share just a little bit about how big of a role that Kyle Monangai did have on this offense, especially this last couple years.
Yeah, I mean, listen, on the field, his role was enormous, right? He generated a lot of our offensive production, and teams had to load the box to try to stop him. But if you look at the box scores and look at the stats, I think that only tells half the story, because what he's able to do in protection, what he's able to do in the pass game, he adds so many different elements out there on the field. And every team's game plan is to come in and stop Kyle. I mean, for the last 2 years, that was the game plan, right? So he opened up the offense for other people to have some success. And you can see our young wideouts really came along this past season under Dave Brock. And I think a large part of that had to do with teams saying we have to stop Kyle. And that's how much he added and meant to our offense. And then if you talk about just programmatically and what he meant to the team and the rebuilding of our program here at Rutgers, he's a cultural guy, right? Like, we build our culture on unselfish guys who are dependable and who can stay focused over a long period of time. And Kyle exemplifies that. It really doesn't matter what's going on around Kyle. Like, he's got that focus. He's got that intentionality that he can stay locked in on the main thing. He keep the main thing the main thing. And if you look at a guy who, for 3 years prior to that 23 season, he really didn't do quite much statistically, right? But then you look at 23 and 24, like you said, his breakout years, quite impressive. But his attitude and his approach never changed. He never came off as a superstar guy. He never came off as the Big Ten leading rusher or the first team all Big Ten guy. Kyle's the same guy day in and day out. And that consistency and that approach and that work ethic, that chip on his shoulder that he carried every day, is what I can and continue to lean on and reference with my young running backs. Like, this is how you go about your business, right? So he's the same guy day in and day out, and he meant a lot to our offense, but he meant a lot to our program and helping us get this thing off the ground and get it running in the right direction.
Literally running. We like that. We like that in Chicago because that's one thing. Ryan Poles has been a big culture character type of person, and when he's drafted and when he's brought free agents in, that's been a focal point of he likes the good football players, but he likes the good people too. So I think that's really important for him and for a lot of people when they're it's a lot easier, I think, or even more fun to cheer for a player who you like as a person too. One of the things, Coach, that I think by now people have probably read somewhere at some time, but he never fumbled in college, and so when you look at that stat, it's incredible. And the number I keep saying is on 707 attempts or carries is what I'm seeing, and he's never fumbled during that time. How much was that just a natural thing for him, or was it something that he did kind of focus on and kind of embrace a little bit as the career went on?
Yeah, I think that is programmatic, and it starts with our head man, Greg Schiano. We got to send in our program that the ball is the program. So when the head coach sits in front of every team meeting and show good ball security clips and bad ball security clips, I think everyone clearly gets the picture, right? But you talk about Kyle, who had over, however many touches, 600 or 700 touches and never fumbled. That's also a personal commitment, right? Like, you watch the film his last 2 years with me, and he'll break out for 40, 50 yards, and that ball is still tucked directly under his chin, right? And perfect ball security. So that's a guy who lived what we were preaching, and that's why he's able to have, those many touches, those many carries without a fumble. And I'm talking about, not like he got lucky on the field. He legitimately displayed perfect ball security every time he ran the ball. And then, like I said, the impact that he's had on the offense, my running back room, and as a team. Like, okay, well, in 2 years, right, with over however many touches as a running back group and as a whole, we put one ball on the ground, and that was the last game of the 23 season, a bowl game. But we got it back. But that's the type of leadership and the influence that he had, because everybody's like, well, if the star player can carry the ball like this, then sure enough, I can carry the ball like this, right? So. It's remarkable, but Kyle's a beast. He's got strong hands. He's got this intense competitive nature to him. Like, nobody's going to stop me, and part of that is protecting the ball. So he's going to answer whatever challenge is thrown at him.
We love the ball protection. It's been a little bit of an issue here, not as much last year, but the previous couple years to that. And so you can definitely tell it's something that they've focused a little bit more on. The weapons that they've brought in now are guys that do not turn the ball over very often, whether it's a fumble, and even the wide receivers being very cautious with the ball too, and being able to come down with those 50-50 catches, things like that. It's definitely been a focal point for Chicago's offense. One thing, when you talk about that time, the overlap there at Rutgers with Isiah Pacheco and his time there, and kind of seeing what Pacheco was able to do at Rutgers, but then now going on to the NFL and being a part of a Super Bowl winning team. How much did that relationship between those two, Kyle Monangai kind of being behind Pacheco and learning a little bit in the beginning of him, play into how kind of the person and the player that he is too?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I had a chance to observe that, right, because I wasn't coaching the position at the time. I think it was really, really instrumental in Kyle's development, his growth, right? You hear the old saying, iron sharpens iron, and I think that situation with Kyle being behind Pacheco really helped shape Kyle's work ethic, his demeanor, his approach to a more business focused mentality. I mean, when you watch Pacheco play the game, Pacheco practiced like that. Okay, he practiced 100% all the time, no matter if we were in week 1 or week 12. And Kyle exemplified that same work ethic and that same those same practice habits, which I tell these young guys all the time in recruiting. It's like, what you see on Saturday is just a byproduct of what the work that's put in from Kyle on Monday through Friday. We can be in week 10 of the season and Kyle has already 150 carries on the season. He's going to practice the same way he did week 1 of camp. So I think a lot of that was learned by Pacheco, and then when he saw the success that Pacheco had in the league early on, I think that was easier for him to buy in even more and mimic that, knowing that that'll help him get to where he eventually want to get to, which is the situation that he's in now. So.
Yeah, and I think the important thing too when you're talking about a Rutgers program, the schedule that they face a lot of years is fierce. And I go back to that 2023 season, Coach, when it's obviously you're playing at Michigan, you're playing at Wisconsin, you're still playing Michigan State, you play Ohio State, you're playing at Penn State.
Hmm.
There's a lot of games in there that you're talking about teams that are some of the best in college football in recent years. And one game that people go back to a lot is that Ohio State game in 2023,
Hmm.
where he had 159 rushing yards in that game. They ended that obviously
Yeah.
against Miami and the Pinstripe Bowl that year. We had 163 yards and a touchdown. And so just kind of that end of the stretch for him in 2023 and how that personifies the type of person he is when it comes to being able to even level up when it comes to that tough competition.
Yes, yes. I think what you just said at the end is definitely it, right? Like he's got a way of raising his game, and Kyle's a very even keel guy. Like nothing gets him rattled, nothing gets him down. But like those certain games now, I see that look in his eyes pregame, and I'm like, oh, he's ready to go. Like I don't know how many times I'm gonna take him out of the game. But that Ohio State game that you mentioned, I mean, that was an incredible performance. And
Mm-hmm.
if you go back and watch the film and look at the boxes that he was running against, look at the amount of tackles he had to break. Like he was locked in from the opening kickoff. And I just think when he gets comfortable in this system, in Chicago, the sky really is the limit, and I'm not going to be surprised. I'm not going to be shocked at whatever he's able to accomplish year one, year two, year three, or whatever it is. But what I will be able to tell you and the rest of the fans there in Chicago is that Kyle's going to be the same guy.
Mm-hmm.
If he's the third, fourth running back, he's only a special teams guy. He's going to be the same guy when he's a 1,000-yard back, when he's all pro, when he's a Pro Bowl player, whatever the case may be. He's going to be the same guy. He's going to work the same. His demeanor is going to be the same. He's going to treat everyone the same. He's going to go out of his way to know everyone in the building, right? He's going to talk to all the vets and pick their brains and pick up on things that he can pick up from them. And as he gets older and more experienced in the league, he'll pass that down to the younger guys. So he's the ultimate competitor, but also the ultimate teammate.
I love that. And that's what we have this group of young guys on the offense, obviously with Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze, Luther Burden added this year, and now Kyle Monangai too. So there's a lot of youngness, but you still have guys like a DeAndre Swift and DJ Moore who kind of have that leadership side of it. And I do think it's kind of a perfect environment for Kyle to come in. A couple more for you before I let you go. And because you mentioned a little bit ago, the other things that you can't really track on box scores when it comes to that blocking ability. And that was one of the clips. There's this highlight reel that has been going around Bears Twitter since he's been drafted,
Yeah.
and it's just his blocks, and he's just laying people out constantly throughout games, and it's something that's a little refreshing because we haven't really had that type of back in a little while. And so tell us a little bit about that side of it, and if it is kind of one of the bigger roles of him this first year, do you think he'll be good with kind of being that guy that's a big part of his job for a rookie season?
Absolutely. Kyle embraces that physicality, and trust me, I've sat back and watched those highlights that's been circling around more than I would like to admit. But it is definitely refreshing when you watch it, right? But I think it starts with his preparation. The foundation of it all is his preparation, right? If you look at him pick up pass protection, pick up pressures, and drop back passes, he knows who's blitzing before the ball is snapped. He is such an intense student of the game. He can talk ball with the best of them. If I say something one time throughout the week, he's able to recite it and keep it in his memory throughout the course of a game. It's incredible, right? And I can tell you that's probably about 10 or 15 more blocks that's highlight tape worthy blocks that didn't even make the tape. But one of the things though is just like I said, his smarts. He's a student of the game. Like you watch Michigan State. We played against Michigan State. I think it was week 12 of the season this year, and he's up there. They bring this exotic third down pressure, and he's up there changing the protections. Right, that's what centers and quarterbacks do.
Yeah.
Right, and that went viral, but he also did that 3 or 4 other times during the season on third down versus exotic looks. And we have a really smart quarterback and a really smart center. It's just that Kyle, he's on it, and he trusts his training and he trusts his preparation that if Kyle makes an adjustment, everybody like, got it, done, right? He's able to come back to him and say, hey, coach, the free safety was here. This is what we should do with the protection. He's able to come back in the run game and say, hey, we didn't get off for the -1, this, that, and the third. So he's a student of the game, and I think what Coach Bieniemy and the rest of the staff is going to appreciate is his ability to communicate, to verbalize what's happening out there, and to be able to make adjustments on the fly and live action.
Yeah, and you just mentioned that name, so let me ask you that, because obviously Bieniemy now taking over in that role of the running backs coach, and then Ben Johnson coming, who just had these few seasons with the Lions with a Jahmyr Gibbs and a David Montgomery, and what they were able to do running the ball is so creative, and it's really fun how you kind of use two different type of backs to make things happen, and it looks like that is what he's trying to do here with a DeAndre Swift being maybe more of a finesse perimeter type of runner, a good back, but that's kind of what his high points come from. And then Kyle Monangai kind of seems like he's one of those guys. He's going to get the after contact. He's really good when it comes to being patient and getting through some of that contact and things like that. How do you think that combination of those two will work this year?
Oh, I think it'll be great. And I don't know DeAndre personally, but he grew up in Philadelphia, which I'm from that area. So I watched him evolve as a player and watched him from when he was at St. Joe's Prep, and then when he went off to college, and just watched his professional career tracking him because of some mutual contacts and just being from the area. So I'm very familiar with his game, but I do think they'll complement each other tremendously. And what I do know from watching Swift is that he's a heck of a competitor. So competitors respect competitors, right? And I think that dynamic can be very, very deadly in the league and Ben Johnson's offense. So I'm excited to see what they can do.
Me too.
And I know there are other parts in that running back room that'll add some value, but those two right there can be very deadly, and I'm excited to watch.
Coach Shaw, final one for you. Have you talked to Kyle since he heard his name being called?
Yeah, I did. Me and my assistant, Steve Timms, we went up to his draft party the Sunday after he was drafted on that Saturday, and he's been around, and we've kept in touch, and he's super excited. He's like, when I saw him at the draft party on that Sunday, he's like, Coach, I'm just ready to get to work. And I'm like, I know you are. I know you
he's
are.
ready to go.
Only thing I made him promise, I said, listen, I'm sure you're going to get way better coaching points from Coach Bieniemy than you got from me. I can promise you that. The only thing I need you to promise me is that you'll continue to carry the ball the right way. I said, that's the only thing you owe me. You don't owe me anything else. He said, I got you. I said, listen, you made a name for yourself now, and it's because you protect the ball. So make sure you don't get too comfortable and let that ball get a little low and loose on you. He said, Coach, I promise you. So, and if ever you see him carrying the ball in practice or in games and he's not holding that ball tight under his chin, you make sure you remind him.
Yeah, we'll definitely get that out there. And I think that the non-fumbling thing, maybe they won't want to change the way he holds the ball. So hopefully they do not. It is funny because I always talk when we draft certain players, obviously there's in Chicago, running backs have been a big part of the history in Chicago, and linebackers have been a big part of the history in Chicago. So anytime we draft one of those two positions, I know it always probably feels a little bit extra special because he's coming somewhere where a man named Walter Payton played and like holds the hearts so closely, all the Chicago fans. And so running backs have a little bit of a special place to us. And so just if you do talk to Kyle again, tell him we're super excited and we're ready to bear down and see him play some football.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I'm excited too. So I appreciate your time. Thanks for having me. And don't be shocked at anything you see from Kyle Monangai this year.
I love it. All right, Coach, and enjoy the rest of your recruiting trail you got going on.
Thank you very much. Have a good one.
Thank you, you too.